In this short video lecture, we're going to talk about how words are formed. So far, I've been talking about English borrowing words from other languages, but there are other ways that the store of English words increases. Words also enter the language through coinage, borrowing, which we've mentioned, compounding, blending, clipping, back formation, conversion, acronym, and derivation. I'm going to discuss each of these in turn, and as I do, pause at any point and write down some examples of your own for each of these types of word formation. So, coinage is the least common process of word formation. Here we're coming up with totally new terms. An example might be product names. The word Google, for example, has entered the lexicon as a word, as Google it. One place where a lot of these coinages come from are from the names of people. So they're eponyms, a new word based upon the name of a person. Freudian, Marxist, Orwellian. What are some of your examples? Can you come up with an example of coinage? And can you come up with an example of an eponym? We've already talked about borrowing, and it's one of the most common ways for words to enter a language, and you've heard several examples. One subtype of borrowing are called calques, and a calque is a translation of elements of a word into another language that gives a sense of the word or the expression, but not necessarily the same sound of the word. An example would be perros calientes for hot dog. Another example would be gratte-ciel, scrape sky, which is a French calque for the English word skyscraper. You can see how it translates elements of the word and gives a sense of the word or expression. You might be able to come up with many examples of borrowing, but can you come up with an example of a calque? Compounding is simply joining two words to make one word. For example, footnote, bookend, bathtub, headbanger. I'm sure you can come up with a lot of examples of compounding. Blending is when two words are smudged together, and parts of each of the word begin to disappear. So some examples might be smog from smoke and fog, or Pokemon from pocket monster. I'm sure you can come up with a couple of examples of blending. Clipping is when one part of a word is chopped off. For example, we say com for intercom, or spec ed for special education, or cell for cellular phone.
I don't know, I'm not a good actor.
Oh, don't say that.
It's okay, I'm just not good at it.
That's really neg.
What?
It's really negative.
Oh, okay, I didn't know because you only used the first three letters.
No, I just think you have to go for it.
Can you come up with an example for clipping? Back formation is when a word is reduced, forming a new but related word. The new word may be a different part of speech than the original words. So, for example, television, which is a noun, becomes clipped to the word televise. Surrealism, also a noun, becomes surreal. Laser, also a noun, becomes laze. I think you might find that it's difficult to come up with many examples of back formation, but there you might just have to Google it. Conversion is where a word comes to be used in a different part of speech. For example, Facebook, which was a noun formed from a compound, becomes a verb, Facebooking. And Google, which is also a noun, becomes a verb, Google. Can you come up with any examples of words that were formed through conversion? Acronyms are words formed from the initial letters of other words. An example here might be SCUBA, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, or LASER, light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, or SNAFU, and you can look up the etymology of that one on your own. Can you think of any acronyms that have gone from being representations of other words to becoming words in their own right? In derivation, affixes are used to create new words, and we're going to talk about derivation in more detail. But here we're talking about prefixes and suffixes, and infixes. Here the example of an infix might be the Homer-Simpsonian edumacation. We'll talk about all of these things more when we talk about derivation. So here we have 9 types of word formation with a couple of subtypes. Can you come up with examples for most of these? Can you come up with examples of coinage, borrowing, compounding, blending, clipping, back formation, conversion, acronym, or derivation? You might find some of your examples have undergone 2 different processes of word formation. They might have been both borrowed and then back formed. Are you still having trouble with the idea of back formation? I just back formed the word back formation to make the word back formed. So that was a back formation. And that's a back formation. Are you still having trouble with the idea of back formation? I just back formed the word back formed from the noun back formation. So the verb back formed came from the noun back formation.